100-point wines, let's discuss. White wine, it's not just for breakfast anymore. Lightweight wine bottles. Now we're talking. All that and more on this episode of This Week Uncorked. Well, hello and welcome to episode 8 of This Week Uncorked. This is for Monday, September 9th, 2024. I'm Brett Martin from Cork and Journey, your number one source for Corkage information. And now let's get right on into the news. Oh man, so Wine Enthusiast has got a great little article on the making of a 100-point wine. So what they're referring to actually is the 2021 Quintessa. I hold in my hand the 2019 Quintessa, not the 2021, but gosh only knows, hopefully it's 80 points. Anyway, it's been given a 100-point rating by Wine Enthusiast Napa critic Elaine Chuckin-Brown. A little article as to what it takes to get there, because by the way, Quintessa, if you're not familiar with this brand, they make some of the finest wines out of Napa Valley, some absolutely beautiful reds, and they're not in that crazy Screaming Eagle $1,000 price point, 100-acre crazy price points. Just reasonable. I mean, reasonable for Napa, $150, $200, which is still crazy, but you can pick up a bottle there. So it's a great little article on what it takes, because it doesn't happen overnight. It's also interesting is the 2021, which if you followed the show, we talked about how this 2021 Napa vintage is just off the charts.
These numbers are off the chart. Fortunately, I have a bigger chart.
We're seeing some incredible stuff from that. So I'd love to taste this. I don't know. We'll be up there. Maybe go to the Quintessa tasting room and see. But while we're at it, talking about 100-point wines, if you're not familiar with Hall, they make some amazing wines, and they have got a book that was written called A Perfect Score. And it's by Craig and Catherine Hall. And it's really about their journey, how they got their 100-point wine. This one was from Robert Parker. And what it went through over at Hall. It's not easy as you learn to make wine and as you perfect and as you go. And if you're going for that big Cabernet or big red, what it takes to get a perfect score. So anyway, good book. Highly recommend it. Actually, an interesting read across the board. So that's scores. And there's so many different scoring systems. And really, if you're not familiar with that 100-point score, it's really a 30-point score, but mostly a 20-point score. You will rarely see a wine. I mean, anything below 80 is poor, and kind of in that 80 to 85 range is average. When you get into the, you get good like 85 to 89, 90. All of a sudden you get into the very good category, 91 to 94, 95 points. And the 95 points and above is that outstanding category. So it's really, you could really do this whole thing in 20 points. But Robert Parker started this whole thing with 100 points. And so there we are. We've got 100 points. So 100 is a good number. We'll go with that. All right, moving right along. Hey, white wine. It's not just a fad, it's here. So really interesting article in the Wine Enthusiast about how white wine sales are through the roof. Sales of Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin Blanc. Not so much Chardonnay. We'll talk about that in a bit. Really taking off. The Italians are just really leaning into Arnis and Timorsaro. Cabernet, which was in Napa Valley, that is kind of the thing, but you're starting to see that fading. Sonoma County now boasts the most Sauvignon Blanc acreage in the entire state. 40% of all the plantings in Sonoma are now Sauvignon Blanc. So it's kind of interesting. And this article kind of delves into why. There are a lot of reasons behind it. One of the things they touch on briefly, and I think is the big thing, is price. You can get a really nice bottle of Sauvignon Blanc or Pinot Gris or Chenin Blanc for $15-20 at a grocery store. And you know what you're going to get. And with red wine, that's not always the case. And, these restaurants are trying to hold down the prices of the red wine. So they're going with lower price points on the red wine. Most of the time, the markup is 3X. One glass of wine in a restaurant, 4X sometimes. One glass of wine in a restaurant should pay for that entire bottle. So if the restaurant's charging you $20 for a glass of wine in a restaurant, odds are that's going to sell for $80 is what the bottle's going to sell for. A wine bottle holds about 24 ounces. So break that down how you want. If a restaurant's giving you a 6-ounce pour, then they've got approximately 4 glasses of wine that they're going to get out of that. If they sell it to you for $20, that means they paid $20 for that bottle of wine. most likely. And yet that's why you'll see that bottle of wine on the menu for $80. So that's why you need corkage fees. See, so you bring your own bottle and they say the corkage fee is $35. You're still way ahead of the game. So we head over to Cork and Journey and you check out your favorite restaurant and see what their corkage fee is. But anyway, honestly, I think the big move, white wine is great. It's nice. It's lovely. I think the big move is all around price. There are a lot of other reasons. Also much easier for winemakers to make. Much easier. You can get a white wine to market in 9 months, less than that sometimes. And so it shortens everything. So anyway, nice article. Check it out over at Wine Enthusiast. And then moving on. Well, Vine Pair asked 20 Psalms, which wine do you wish people ordered more? And it's an interesting list if you go and look at it, because they're really, oftentimes, there's just generic categories in here. So I kind of summed it up, 5 that I thought was really interesting. The number one on the list was Cab Franc, and that is just a huge personal favorite of mine. We actually have a review on the site of the Gandona Mea. This is a Cab Franc. Mea means the middle. This is up in Pritchard Hill in Napa, just a beautiful winery. And we've got some videos that we've done on the YouTube channel about them as well. We're going to be talking about this bottle in a minute, completely different topic. But, absolutely, Cab Franc, I think, is an overlooked grape that not a lot of people order. And it's absolutely amazing. Italian Rosato, which is Italian Rosé. That's one which is a blend of Sangiovese and Nebbiolo. And then Amarone della Valpolicella, which is interesting. So that's a crazy wine if you've never had it. We have a review of one over on site as well. But what they do here is they dry the grapes to boost the sugar level. And they're not making sweet wine. They're just trying to get the sugar level boosted up so that the yeast, which eats the sugar, will give you a higher alcohol content. It's really the reason for it. So you end up with, so this is a 17% alcohol wine. It's going to be dry. It's going to be big. I like this kind of wine. Personally, I'd prefer 12% alcohol wine, 13%, but with global warming and climate change, it's getting harder and harder to find it. But this is one the Psalms would love to see. The other one, which is interesting on here, is they'd like for more people to order Chardonnay. And I think the reason behind that is like when the previous article we're talking about where people are ordering all these white wines, they're not ordering Chardonnay. Why? Because I think Napa winemakers killed it. They over oaked it. It's horrible for most people. A lot of people like it. Personally, I think it's just awful. They've just turning it into this garbage. Whereas, but what people don't know, like if you order Chablis, that's Chardonnay. And it's great. And it's not over oaked. And it's from France. And white Burgundy, Chardonnay, not over oaked. There are just a lot of things you can do with Chardonnay, and it can be a great wine. People aren't ordering anymore. I'll call it the Rombauer effect. It's just, take a wine, dump so much oak on it, you don't even know what to do, and maybe people are just tired of that. And then also on the list, I think coming in number 7 or 8 was Merlot. They wish more people ordered Merlot. I do believe Merlot is coming out of the 20-year sideways slump. If you've never seen the movie Sideways, well, Miles, the main character, is not a fan of Merlot.
Anybody orders Merlot, I'm leaving. I am not drinking any Merlot.
And there are a lot of people in the industry who think that one of the reasons Merlot sales just tanked after that movie came out and it was such a big hit. Hopefully Merlot will come out. And Merlot's amazing wine. Try it. By the way, a little joke at the end. The bottle of wine that Miles is drinking at the very end of the movie is a Cabernet Merlot blend, predominantly Merlot. That's the little inside joke at the end of that movie. Hey, if you haven't seen the movie Sideways, I suggest you do. You're coming up on the 20th anniversary of it. And if you didn't know, that movie comes from a book written by Rex Pickett called Sideways. I know that's crazy. And if you head over to rexpickettbooks.com, he has 4 books currently in this Sideways series. 4. Head over there. You can get 10% off using the code Cork10. That's site-wide. He'll sign the books for you. He's got posters. He's got all kinds of stuff. Amazing books. Big fan. Head over to rexpickettbooks.com and check that out. Alrighty, and then moving on with the news. Meiningers International has a nice little article called A Better Way to Communicate Wine. I thought this was pretty interesting because this has been around for a long time. I mean, when you are drinking a glass of wine, some of the things that some critics say they smell, I get blackcurrant and blackberries and black cherries, and they're kind of saying, hey, let's just go with black fruit. I get dark fruit. I get stone fruit, kind of generalize it a little bit, but it's an interesting look at, should we talk about wine a little differently? So you've got a linguist, I'm going to mess up this person's name, but it's Daruz Galinsky, says that, we could use a little refresh as wine professionals on how we talk about wine. If you haven't, by the way, there's a great book called The New Wine Rules by John Bonnet. Anyway, this book is funny. It kind of just does the same thing as it goes down. Rule 48, drink your wine out of big bottles. How I just randomly turned to this. We come to, anyway, it talks about the size of bottles, larger bottles. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of, it's okay to swirl your glass. But it also talks about how you refer to wine, how you talk about wine. But this is a person who basically says, look, we need to completely redefine how we talk about wine and what we do about wine. So, if you're into wine, which you probably are if you're watching this, pretty good book. I recommend it as well. All righty. And then wrapping it up, Zuccardi down in Argentina. There's an article over in the drink business talking about how they're breaking the mold for their big wines and they're putting them in a lightweight bottle. I thought this was a great article because there's a lot of discussion around this. Whether you're an environmentalist, there's global warming, whatever your thoughts on this are. One of the things you do know, the heavier an item is, the more expensive it is to transport that item. So if you can put wine in a lighter bottle, well, then technically it's going to, cheaper all the way around, cheaper to bring that glass bottle to the winery for bottling, cheaper for that glass bottle full to leave the winery to make its way to its various destinations to eventually to your palate. So the lighter you can get, the better you go. And I'm like, yes, this is a great trend. So in looking into it, I decided to do some scientific experiments. So basically, Zuccardi has a 90-gram bottle, which is 32 ounces empty. And their new bottle, or 900 grams, which is 32 ounces empty, and their new bottle is going to be 570 grams, which is 20 ounces empty. So I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So I started weighing some bottles. So, we talked about a couple bottles here today. So this Quintessa comes in at 48 ounces full. So that's interesting. So what would this new Zuccardi bottle come in? Well, it turns out I found a bottle that is the same as the Zuccardi bottle, and it was this little Kirkland Barolo bottle here. That's right, Kirkland. Kirkland makes they've got some interesting wines over there. Some are good, some are bad, but this Barolo is fantastic at $19 a bottle, and you should check it out. And my good friend Peter Neptune from the Neptune School of Wine, master sommelier, great guy, just launched his YouTube channel. Go check it out. He actually does a little thing on some Kirkland wines, and he talks about this, and he likes it. It's a good wine. But here's the thing. This comes in at 20 ounces empty, which is the same as the new bottle that Zuccardi's getting all the big play over. Now, this is what we call a lower end wine, right? The Zuccardi bottles are going to be $100, $200. So they're saying, we're going to put our high end wines in lighter bottles. And people have to understand, just because a wine is in a heavy bottle doesn't mean it's any better. You say, well, that's cool. I guess the Kirkland's on this and they have this really new technology and they can bring it in. So remember, this is 46 ounces full, 20 ounces empty. So I went to the cellar and I pulled out a bottle of 1989 Bordeaux and I took a look at it. And guess what? It comes in at 45 ounces full. So it comes in an ounce lighter than this Zuccardi bottle. This is Grand Cru Classé. It doesn't get any better. This is in a light bottle. In 1989, they weren't using heavy bottles. So we just need to go back in time and start using bottles from that period of time. Everything else was in 1 to 2 ounces kind of category. But if we talk about this Mea, and you can compare this Mea, which is a gray wine, you compare this beautiful heavy bottle, it's premium, to this old Bordeaux, okay, and from 1989, we are talking a difference in weight here of 12 ounces. 12 ounces. So 1 pound is 16 ounces. And it turns out 1 fluid ounce of water is actually 1 ounce of weight. Not all fluids are the same, but water. A can of Pepsi weighs 13 ounces. So basically, if you hold in your hand this bottle and this, you have the same exact weight that you do on this. So for every case of this you're shipping like another 12 Pepsis with it. So yes, it does leave a carbon footprint. Yes, it is a problem. And yes, all winemakers, get your act together and start going with lighter bottles. And I gotta think with today's technology, you could get a bottle less than 20 ounces that would be perfectly fine that everybody would love. So anyway, that's my rant of the week on wine bottles. But either way, kudos to Zuccardi. They're putting their premium wine in regular light bottles, and good for them. All right, let's move on with our wine and winery of the week. We're going to head to Arizona this week, out to Page Springs Cellars. Tina and I went on a journey through lesser-known wine regions, basically the Southwest. We left out of here to Las Vegas, and our first stop was Jerome, Arizona. From there, we went into New Mexico and then Texas and then swung back around. And it's really kind of interesting. The wine-growing regions for New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas, they're kind of all the same. They run along the bottom of Arizona and New Mexico through the top of Texas, because Texas drops down there. There's a mountain range there. Tends to be the best place to grow grapes. But there are other areas that are trying to make wine. So a lot of times the wine you're getting when you're in a certain area isn't from that area. So in Texas, if you are down in Texas wine country in Fredericksburg, all those wines are basically made up in Lubbock. So 7-hour drive to get to where the wines are from. In Arizona, most of the wines are made in southern Arizona, but Jerome is up in the north, but it's become this little wine tasting town. And a bunch of the grapes are from there, but some of the grapes are actually grown in Jerome, and they're doing a interesting job there. And one of the places that has a very nice vineyard, lovely tasting room, is Page Springs. And we went through and we tasted a lot. And we tasted, if you look at the article online, we went through, they've got a lot of wines. So kind of worth taking a look at. I would go there. I would taste through their wines. They're all in the 80-point range, mid 80s, so they're good. In our opinion, they did have a couple though that we thought kind of came into that very good category. One of those wines was this 2022 Anonymous. That's 55% Grenache, 22% Syrah, 16% Mourvedre. This wine is worth taking a look at. We gave it 90 points, and it has held up past, one of the problems sometimes I think when you go to lesser known wine regions, you're tasting wine, you're like, wow, this isn't very good. And then you get to a place where the wine's better than average, but not great. But you've been tasting bad wine for so long, you're like, oh, wow, this is amazing. You buy yourself a couple bottles or a case, you come home, you open it up, and it doesn't hold up. Not the case with this. This wine actually was very good. So anyway, shout out to the guys over at Page Springs. The 2022 Anonymous was fantastic. And if you are ever in Jerome, you should check it out. We also have an entire guide to Jerome with restaurants, wineries, and that entire area there. We spent some time, and we're going to, I highly recommend. Great weekend, beautiful little town. You will love it. And with that, let's stay in Jerome and talk about our restaurant and corkage of the week. So, hey, you've just been tasting wine in Jerome and you'd like to go have a very nice meal. We ate at a lot of restaurants in Jerome, and I will tell you, the Clinkscale is far and away the best place we went to. Absolutely amazing. Brunch, lunch, dinner, good stuff. Highly recommended. It's right on Main Street there. You cannot miss it. It's also a hotel. Didn't stay there. Probably will next time we go to Jerome, stay there as well. But we had a great lunch. I mean, it's good food. Kind of interesting though. Arizona. So we talked, I think we covered a restaurant a few weeks ago or last week in New Mexico, which does not, corkage is illegal. Arizona is also a weird state when it comes to corkage. Corkage, you can't get it to Clinkscale because Arizona allows corkage, means they allow you to bring a bottle of wine into a restaurant as long as that restaurant does not have a liquor license. And the restaurant says it's okay for you to bring a bottle of wine in. So you got two things there. So if you have a restaurant that does not have a liquor license, you are allowed to BYOB. And the restaurant can charge you for that, and you can come in and you can BYOB. But again, it's up to the restaurant. But if they have a liquor license, wine list, booze, they're selling, then no, you can't bring your own wine or booze into that restaurant. One of those odd states that has those kind of things. So no corkage pretty much in all of Arizona. We did find a few places that maybe bend the rules a little bit and do allow corkage. You kind of saw that a little bit too in New Mexico. Texas has got some odd laws on that as well. So, but for the most part, you're good. But remember, this country is 50 different states. Every single state has their own laws. And especially as it comes to alcohol, you can get some really interesting laws in various states. So you do want to head over to Cork and Journey when you're traveling somewhere and kind of understand what's going on there as well. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, we would love it if you would follow us on your favorite social media platform. Please go over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And go over to Cork and Journey, subscribe to our newsletter as well. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week.